You're listening to Impolite Society with Laura and Rachel.
You are now listening to Impolite Society with Laura and Rachel.
Enjoy these few seconds of calm, peaceful voices before it's Impolite Society and we break your eardrums. That's how you get listeners, is you break their eardrums.
The bait and switch. That's how you get listeners.
Well, we should probably wait more than 10 seconds before switching if we're going to do the bait and switch.
Fair.
We bait and switched ourselves this week, not going to lie.
Yeah, we did.
We are recording at the last minute a new episode because we hated our last one. Sorry, Jessica.
Yeah. Jessica from Ohio, your question.
Oh, no.
It was too much. It didn't go well.
I mean, we tried our best, and I think every podcast needs to have a lost episode.
But now we're going to redo it with something even better.
Yes. We're not going to try to have a hard conversation. I'm sorry, that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about the things you put on your body and you put your legs in one at a time.
Are we talking about underwear? Are we talking about bra? No, we're talking about pants, everybody.
Pantalones.
Or bloomers, as we'll come to see.
This is Impolite Society, and today is Fan Friday. What is Fan Friday, Laura?
Fan Friday. It is when at last Friday of the month, we answer your impolite questions that you send to us, either at rude@impolitesocietypodcast.com or on any of our socials, on Instagram, Facebook, all the places. This one is from Instagram, and I don't know where he's from other than Instagram because he didn't respond to my last-minute request to see where he was from in the world because, like I said, we're recording this last minute.
Yes, we are, and this is actually a funny story because our listener question today comes from Bronson. Hey, Bronson, you messaged me on Reddit and then again on Instagram, so thank you for listening. I'm glad our podcast sparked conversation with you and your girlfriend. That's what we're here to do. And you asked a lot of good questions, and I'm sorry we confused you with somebody else for a minute. That happens. But we're making it up by making your questions question the spirit of this Fan Friday. And I say spirit because you asked a lot of questions, and those are all good questions, and they all got our brains turning. But I think the question at the core of the questions that you asked us was, what about taboos coming and going? Taboos that we used to have are no longer taboos, but mostly taboos today. What ones will become normal in the future? And so we are just going to give you a heaping helping of exposition about how taboos become normal. And then we are going to tell you a story.
We talk a lot about taboos on the podcast, right? But we don't really talk about what taboos are and where they come from. And so I think this is a good thing for us to tackle. It's kind of like it's related to the question. It's also a little exposition about, what we talk about and why.
Exactly. Here we are only like 3 months into the pod. We're like, let me tell you about taboos. We just assumed you knew. Before we jump into this beautiful story, we're going to say what a taboo is. So essentially a taboo is something that exists outside of our cultural or societal norms. But just like society, the things that exist on those fringes or outside of polite society, they ebb and flow. Culture is fluid. Things change. In my study of sociology, I have learned that there are 3 sorts of norms. One is folkways. So that's just the way that we do things in everyday life. So example, if Laura was running up behind me, I wouldn't let the door slam in her face. I'd hold the door for her. The one that we deal the most in is the second kind called mores. So this is norms that are based on morality. So that's a lot of the stuff we talk about.
Sex before marriage.
Yes.
Pooping, and nobody talks about poop. You're not supposed to talk about poop.
Sleeping with dead bodies.
Yeah, that's definitely a taboo.
It is, because it violates our morals, but it also violates the third and final one, which is laws. So laws are taboos that are written down on paper and enforced by people who have guns.
And we all know that these changed because there are things that were on the books in law that are no longer there, thank goodness.
Truly, and things that weren't there in the past are there now, thank goodness. Luckily, all these things kind of ebb and flow. There are ways that we still learn, though, no matter how they change, we're aware of them, and we know that they're there. And we learn these norms through 3 ways. One is by others. we are just like our closest living relatives. When we say human see, human do, I ain't going to do something that I see of all my friends and family and peers and colleagues. If they're doing something, I'm probably going to do it. And I'm sure as hell not going to question why we're all doing it. I'm just going to say, sign me up.
Okay. I mean, yeah, definitely that is a thing. I mean, I would encourage all of us to ask why, but I take your point.
Yes, it's going to be a lot harder to ask why when everybody else is doing it. Another way that we learn these norms is through stories. So through the media, through the books we read, through the movies we watch. And this is such an important part of our life that we did a whole podcast about it in the good old Big Talk archives where we discussed media that shaped who we are because media plays that big of a part. Okay, and then the final way we learn norms is through authority. And this isn't just by enforcing the laws. This is also authority figures in our lives saying, no, you can't hit your sister no matter how many horse legs she breaks of your plastic horses. Or your teachers that say you have to stand in a single file line, one brick apart. And that's just priming us to be cogs in the machine.
I kind of agree, but okay.
There we go. We agree on something. Write it down. It's a first. No, just kidding. These norms, these are all the ways we learn them. They're very ingrained and they become big parts of who we are and how, our society functions. So the taboos that are existing outside of it, it takes a lot of work because norms are based on beliefs and beliefs are really isolated. They exist in a network, which makes it really hard to kind of snip out the one you don't want.
Yeah.
So to do that, one of the ways that I read about in research was you have to make an argument and the argument has to kind of underlie the other beliefs that are connected to, and you have to kind of find a weakling like the wolves and they're chasing down the elk. They got to find the weak one.
You have to find the fallacy at the core of a belief.
Yes, and then the rest come tumbling down. But that's still really hard because secondly, you can't change a belief if it's still being widely enforced by the peers around it. Humans are social creatures. You can't change something that other people are doing. Like even if there's a perfectly good argument for it, if everyone around you is wearing a binding piece of clothing that cuts you in half and makes it hard to breathe for fashion, you can say all the things that are wrong with it, but if everyone's around you wearing it and all the fashion icons at the time are wearing it, you're going to keep wearing that corset. You're going to say, lace it up.
Well, some people are, but generally it makes it harder for people to say no.
Exactly. And belonging is kind of synonymous with survival at some points. Yes. There are certain instances where those kind of beliefs can change, which will change the culture, change the norms. One is a major change in the culture. So this can be invention if we create something like, I don't know, the internet or a car. We don't own horses anymore, unfortunately. Or discovery of something new, like, I don't know, vaccines that makes more people alive. That's fine. Or diffusion, where someone who has a wild idea, like, let's not wear our corsets anymore. And then it kind of diffuses out. That ties into the next one, which is new ideas and modification of ideas. If there's one primary religion around, but then this crazy carpenter starts having all these wild ideas about treating the poor and feeding the hungry, that's going to change our overall culture, right? Because it's shifting it towards that. Demographic changes. If a society experiences a boom, let's say, in a specific generation, that generation is going to carry more weight and their ideas are going to be more prevalent in the society.
Numbers win.
Exactly. Tension and conflict is another thing that changes cultures heavily because you have to adapt to your situation. Let's look at the last, year of our lives with COVID. Our culture, our society has changed drastically to adapt to this tension that's happening. And then the final one is organized or deliberate, which is really hard. Really hard. Some of the kind of key ways to do that is to find a behavior gap. So find the difference between how we're acting and how you want us to be acting, and then get the right messengers to tell us how we should be acting, aka influence us. Maybe find some influencers. Then show us the behavior a lot. We're kind of thick, us humans. You gotta beat us over the head with stuff. And then we also need to have the message spread in a way that resonates with us.
Yeah.
Then we also have to tailor it to our audience, kind of that same thing. And then, of course, you have to amplify the stories of people adapting the new behavior so that we tap into that first one of monkey see, monkey do, and we start to do it as well because we see other people doing it and having success.
That was all just like a big flashback to my college days in sociology. So
I
Thank
love
you.
Sociology 101. It's the first time you ever are like, what? This is how the world, identities, cultures.
It was one of my favorite classes in college, absolutely. Well, we have a way to illustrate these, kind of dry sociology terms.
What I thought that was super fun.
But with a tale of the taboo. And so this is Laura Presents Who Wears the Pants? A Short History of Women in Pants.
Some bitches and britches.
Whatever, you copywriter, that's so fucking good.
It literally just came to me.
You're so fucking good. All right, fine, we'll change it. Who wears the pants? Bitches in britches. A short history. Who wears the pants? A short history of bitches in britches.
I'm going to keep the original because I want the credit.
Yeah, I know you. I knew as soon as I did that, I was like, I know she's going to keep it. Anyway. So, all right. Nobody thinks anything about wearing pants today. We're all wearing our jeans. We're wearing our yoga pants all over the place. But at one time, it was definitely quite the controversy. I mean, Eastern cultures, they were wearing them for centuries. But in Western culture, it's kind of been a bit of a journey. So when you think of women in history of America, you think of women in those big flowy skirts. You got your Revolutionary War ladies, big flowy skirts. Your Civil War ladies, big flowy skirts. They're pretty much all the same thing. I mean, it changed a little. You got a bustle or a hoop skirt here, a corset there, but not much really changed since the start of America until the 1850s. And
Oh my God, that long ago?
yeah,
Whoa.
there were even some laws on the books about it until the mid-1850s. Cities like San Francisco, Chicago, a bunch of major ones, they had legislations that criminalized appearing in public, quote, in a dress not belonging to his or her sex. Now, I assume that also applied to men in dresses, but who knows?
I would mostly assume that's directed at men because there's a lot of homophobia in Western culture. But I will say, when you're thinking about the sociology research of societal norms, that is kind of that highest level where it is in law. Like, it is a norm that is so strict, it is enforced.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which shows, like, in 150 years, almost 200 years, we came a long way.
Yeah. And so the big hubbub in 1850s was by Elizabeth Libby Smith Miller. She seemed like a pretty cool lady. She had a house in New York. It was a stop on the Underground Railroad.
Good for her.
She was a women's rights activist, kind of a suffragette, and she is credited as the first woman in the U.S. to really design pants for the ladies. She got tired of working in her garden and her skirt, and she decided to make something different. Something called bloomers, which are basically just big old hammer pants underneath a calf-length skirt.
She's out there at her garden,
Yeah,
just kind of shuffling around.
Yeah. And it really caught on with the suffragettes of the time. So they were fighting for women's rights, and they thought it was great. And so they used some of those terms that you were talking about over here about, trying to show the behavior, trying to spread the message in a way that resonates. They were saying, oh, this is for your health. You're going to be able to get out. You're going to be able to do more. Corsets are bad for you.
Yeah,
and there were a lot of women who obviously were resistant, but Libby's cousin, Elizabeth.
Original.
Elizabeth.
No wonder they had to go by nicknames.
I know, right? She said it best. She said, the question is no longer, how do you look, but woman, how do you feel?
Ooh.
I like that. Because women are like, oh, it looks frumpy. And I can saw the pictures. Oh, it looks frumpy. All right. But it's all about how you're feeling when you're out there working in your garden, when you're doing your stuff. In the 1890s, it got a little bit of popularity. It wasn't very popular in the U.S. Actually, Paris was more into it because they saw it as like a flash fashion thing as opposed to like a political statement. In the U.S., it was kind of more seen as a political statement. But so they started to make these a little bit more mass production, and it was because of the bicycle.
Yes.
Got really popular in the late 1800s, and riding a bike in a skirt sounds pretty dangerous. You get that shit
It's
all
hard.
turned up in the spokes. No good.
Especially when you're like 8 feet in the air on those giant bicycles with the giant front wheel and the 2 little back wheels.
They were popular maybe for these activities, but not super popular with your everyday women. Like they didn't wear them outside of sporting activities. So flash forward then to World War I. Around 1914. So women went to the factories, just like they did in World War II, maybe a little bit less so in the U.S., but that's when it became a little bit more socially acceptable in order to wear pants. But once the boys came back, women are going back to their skirts for the most part.
Oh, see, we're back from the Great War, and you gotta take those pants off, and I'm gonna step in those pants, and you get back to the house, lady.
Yeah, but there were some others that decided to make some waves. Katharine Hepburn was the first actress to wear pants in a major motion picture. That was in 1930. And Eleanor Roosevelt became the first lady to appear in trousers at a formal function in 1933. Like I said, they were kind of just a thing. A lot of people kind of frowned on them. They didn't think that they were that great. But World War II, history kind of repeated itself, but on a bigger and better scale. Women were wearing pants, again, to go to work safely in the factories. Imagine, Rosie the Riveter.
I'm wearing a denim shirt today.
Oh,
so
in honor.
that might be what sparked this idea. I feel a lot like Rosie today.
I wear a lot of denim shirts. I love it. But yeah, they were cutting their hair. They were doing all this stuff so they could work happily in the factories, not get their hair caught in shit, not get their skirts caught in shit. They were doing real work, and a lot of it. And it was not about fashion. There were no couture houses that were making millions. This was completely utilitarian. They were doing their patriotic duty. They were rationing, which means they're not wearing these bright colors or frilly things. It would have been embarrassing. It would have been shameful and unpatriotic and, ungrateful to do that.
Enter tension and conflict as being a catalyst for changes to social norms.
Absolutely. Like I said, people weren't turning out fashionable versions. They were making their own, or they were wearing their husband's clothes to work. But World War II lasted for the U.S., lasted from 41 to 44. So 3 years of going to work in these clothes, doing hard manual labor, this shit wears out. So they had to make some more. And the sales of women's trousers in 1944 was 5 times more than the previous year. Those manufacturers are cranking them out. They have a demand. They're making them.
They are sewing in those pant lines. The boom, boom, boom.
The inseams.
The inseams. I'm very domestic, can't you tell?
But 1945, boys are coming back. And we're taking a few steps back. So
Of
the
course.
housewives, it's baby boom. They're like, oh, okay, I'm going back to the home. And I feel like maybe that there was a swing back, it was more masculine to go into the
Revert
factory. Yeah.
Back to, or all those GIs wanted easy access.
Well, they're just like, in my husband's home, I want to be frilly, I want to be cute. So they're putting on their frillies, like the curly lines, whatever the hell they're called, with the,
I don't know.
the big fluffy thing underneath your skirt with a little tight waist and their pearls.
Poodle skirt.
No, that's not it either. You know what? The fluffy thing that goes underneath to give it like a full circle skirt.
Oh, a ruffle duffle.
Yeah, sure.
That is not a word.
I mean, it's ruffly.
A duffle ruffle.
The duffel. They wear the duffel ruffle. That's exactly what it is.
Everybody there doing the duffle ruffle. Doop, doop, da, doobity da.
And so pants were okay. They were good for working and they were good for at home. But in like public or social engagements, they're just, people would look at you like, what the hell are you doing as a woman? I think of it now as wearing a sweatshirt to a fancy dinner. Nobody is going to arrest you and nobody's going to be like, what are you wearing? But they're going to give you a few looks like, really? That's what you chose to wear? After that, there's no real rhyme or reason or something that started to make pants more prevalent. It just started creeping in. And I think you mentioned that in one of your diffusion.
Diffusion, yeah. So we had the Audrey Hepburns and the Nancy Reagans. Who was it again?
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Eleanor Roosevelt's, they planted the seed and then it started diffusing, like you said, throughout the culture. So that's like a change in ideas and a change in the cultural norms.
So it really took until the late 60s. So think about the 60s. You think about a lot of revolutions going on. And
Yes,
these crazy...
burn those bras.
That was the 70s.
Oh, burn those girdles.
I think... Yeah.
Burn those ruffle frumples.
it was ruffle duffles, Rachel.
Burn them. They go up easy. Let's just say that. That's why women started wearing pants, because their ruffle duffles kept catching on fire all the time.
So those crazy youths wear whatever the hell they wanted, and it just kind of caught on. So in the late 60s, Mary Tyler Moore got a little bit of flack for wearing the capri pants on the Dick Van Dyke Show. She had shown the lower half of her leg. They were kind of cupping her bottom. Some people didn't like that. Got a little flack for that. And then Barbara Streisand, which I just find entertaining, broke new ground. She was the first one to wear pants to the Oscars. After that, I mean, we're going to the 80s. We're going on full-on power suits for women. We got pants. We got big shoulder blades, shoulder pads.
Be as masculine as possible.
Yeah. And
to gain respect.
Yeah, I mean, you do what you got to do, right?
Big pants, big shoulders, big hair.
You do what you got to do in order to compete with the big boys, right? And that was what they did in the 80s. And I think, actually, in some ways, it is kind of remained in our standards, at least for me in the 80s and the 90s. So my grade school, we had to wear skirts. There was no pants option for me in grade school. None.
Well, you went to a Catholic school.
I did. I did go to Catholic school. So
blame that on the Pope. I will say my first internship was in the state legislature, and my teacher gave us an article, and the article said, and I think it was written in the 80s, that women should wear skirts and low heels so that they are not intimidating to men, because by staying within your gender norms, they just see you as you as opposed to
a sexualized version of you.
Well, not even sexualized in the pants, but just kind of like if I walked into a business meeting with bright purple hair.
Yeah. Distracting.
Yeah, instead of just being like, oh, pants on a lady, me no compute. Their heads just exploded in the 80s, I guess. Who knows?
I mean, it just goes to show it's really hard to change it, even though we have changed it. We're both wearing pants right now. Nobody would dream of saying anything different about it.
Speak for yourself. I'm Donald Ducking it. You can't see my lower half on this Zoom call.
That's what I do all day. I just sit in my underwear. Yeah. I ruffle my skirt and
Your front fumes, as I heard it so tastefully put. In a commercial for genital deodorant.
I fucking hate those commercials. They piss me off.
Front fumes.
Those, they're advertising me all the time on Facebook, and it really rankles me. I'm like, my pussy will smell however my pussy wants to smell. And when it smells bad, I'll take a shower. Fuck off.
I would be more concerned about why you keep getting served those ads, but
I know. I don't know why. I think I might have hovered on them because they make me mad. You know what I mean?
Well, they're very disorienting. I mean, who does that? Who relies on cheap crudeness to attract somebody's attention? God,
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's shock value. Only the worst kind of humanity stoops that low. So where did we land on our pants story? Is there a happily ever after and the pants rode into the sunset on the horse because they could put the horse between their legs comfortably?
I think there is. I think it's us right now. Like I said, sitting here wearing pants. I wear pants to work all the time. I kind of prefer to wear dresses because I find it's more flattering to my figure. But on days where I'm just like, I'm going to be sitting in my office and doing nothing, hell yeah, I'm wearing pants.
That's true. Pants are the easier thing to wear. For some reason, they're more comfortable. Maybe because I don't have to feel my thighs squeaking together all day. So we told the parable of pants, the pants parable.
Bitches and britches.
To show how something that went from law that became a social moray, because it was structured on the morals of traditional gender roles, something that changed over time through tension and conflict, having somebody who came in and had those key quote-unquote influencers that came in, and then that diffused through our culture that let us be bitches and britches today.
So that goes on to the main part of Bronson's question, the Fan Friday question. What is taboo today that is not going to be taboo in the future? In our opinions, of course.
Yeah, so these are what we've noticed through our lives. So, Laura, what do you think?
So one thing that I thought of was men wearing makeup.
Oh, it's on a journey.
So I grew up, obviously, where nobody wore makeup, but I knew one boy who did. My brother.
Oh, he turned out well.
He is a very vain individual, and he would use concealer. on his zits, like before he would go to school or before he would go out for the night. And of course,
I thought he was putting on guy liner.
No. No, that was not my brother. He was not vaguely alternative. But so he did that, and we always made fun of him endlessly for it. But if you've noticed, in the last couple years, the personal care aisle for men, they have exploded at drugstores and Target. Like, they have in the Target near me, like they have a whole aisle dedicated to it. And they've even got like the big displays with like the fancy lighting, you know, that they have in the women's aisle for makeup. They never had that when I was younger, or even like, I feel like 5 years ago, that was just not a thing. I mean, they had the aisle, you know, with the shaving cream and the body wash, but it was not packaged in such a way.
No, such a clean, crisp way. They were like, throw dirt on the package.
Yeah.
Just rough it up a bit. It needs to look manly, and like you didn't want to look normal.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you see things targeted men that were traditionally for women. We've got moisturizer, bodyscaping equipment, wrinkle creams, and just, you know, more clothes than ever before, more different kinds of things in the way that they present them. And makeup for men is something that is really trending on YouTube. If you look up makeup tutorial videos, there's tons of men that are doing it and teaching. And of course, that's kind of for the gender bending, you know, homosexuals, but that is groundbreaking. That's the start, right? Of how this starts to break down. Even, I don't remember who it was because I'm not big on the makeup scene, but there is some, male YouTuber that got a huge makeup deal with somebody, you know, to promote their stuff. That is huge. And so I don't think it's going to be too long before we see men wearing makeup, you know, starting with the concealer or the brow gel, maybe some guy liner.
But then use it to express themselves, because the need or the desire to ordain ourselves, to make ourselves unique, to express ourselves is innate.
What is up with that? We need to do one on that.
Well, I mean, I'm not just saying like makeup and trying to make ourselves more aesthetically pleasing, but it's just like people were
like
tattooing
tattoos and
themselves.
piercings.
And
yeah, totally.
We're all about modifying our body and our surroundings. I watched this TV show called Alone. It's fascinating. They drop these people into Alaska, the one we watched, and they just have to, they have to survive. And the person who's out there the longest gets $1 million or whatever. And they don't tell the other people how long what everybody else is doing. You could be the second to last one. You could be the first one. Nobody knows. And these people made their camps, and then they adorned them with things. This one guy had found antlers in a deer skull, and he hung them on the side of his hut. And he's surviving. He is, I mean, granted, he's on TV, so he knows the outside world exists.
It's kind of real to him in the moment.
In
How
the
could
moment,
it not feel real?
It was definitely real. So it was real to them in that regard, and they were going crazy. But like in that situation, they still wanted to decorate. They still wanted to ordain things. It's something like we're like those little birds who make the little tunnels to lure their spouses in. There's something innate
to our humanity. So yeah, I think it does make sense that in the future that men will be expressing themselves with makeup, just like what was it, Hunger Games? You know, all the,
I was thinking
the crazy hair and the makeup.
Everybody's just going to be extreme, and I think we see that, you know, not in day-to-day life, but on YouTube. And the more access we see to other people doing it, the more we're going to want to do it, and the more it's going to change that norm and make it a norm for us.
Even just all the personal care stuff that celebrities do, you know, that like got fashionable, that people didn't do 10, 15 years ago. You know what I mean?
But it's also living in a dichotomy where that's happening online, but we're also, I feel like, giant slobs. Like you go out to public, everybody's wearing athleisure, they don't do their hair, they don't do their makeup. So it's just like, are we only going to present that side of ourselves for pictures that we post online?
Yes.
I agree. You have an outfit. That outfit doesn't count unless you post it on Instagram.
It's sad but true. What about you, Rachel?
What I think, and something I hope will change as time goes on, it's a taboo, and you might, I mean, not you, Laura, but you, the society, the people listening, might not agree that it is a taboo. But I've been feeling it a lot lately. And this is the taboo of being childless and being single or being in a relationship and not having children. I've been feeling the heat a little bit because I live in a neighborhood, and the block that I live on, it was a really big mix of people before, but within, you know, people having kids, people moving in, this little corner that I'm in has become very young family centric.
Mm-hmm.
And I see them outside and they stand around and they talk and they chit chat with each other while the kids play.
And you're like, I'm outside the loop.
We will sit out there and nobody is ever as friendly to us.
Oh.
And I mean, they say hi and stuff and we say hi and that kind of thing. But there's literally one of our neighbors who does not talk to us. And I thought he was just super standoffish until I saw him interacting with other young families or parents of young children.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm starting to feel the heat there. I feel like there's a taboo because I am married. My husband and I, we live in a house that's kind of like a family-sized house, but it's just the two of us.
Yeah.
And we don't have any immediate plans for it starting a family. And I feel like that makes us a little bit of an outcast in this area. And I mean, and this pressure that I feel to procreate is so minuscule compared to 20, 30 years ago when women were just starting to put on pants.
Yeah.
There was even more pressure, right? Like that was the societal norm that's laid out for you. Grow up, you get married, you have kids, da-da-da-da. I hope that as time goes on, that's going to change. Women are having more options. We got pants on now. We're unstoppable, bitches, you know? So we got pants. We got mobility, free mobility. And I think people are seeing different kind of outcomes. People are really conscious about the environment and overpopulation. I think that, and money, I guess, is tight these days.
Mm-hmm.
So people are choosing different paths. And I think that the more people who do that, the more common it's going to be.
And I think it's getting more acceptable in the sense of what people say. I feel like their words are maybe the first thing to change and then their actions are the second to change. Like, 30 years ago, if you said, I don't think I'm going to have kids, people would be like, why not? What are you definitely should. Da, 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 da. But now the first thing I think people say is like, that's fine. It's not for everyone. I don't know if they actually think that, but I think that's what they say. Like, that's more the company line nowadays. But I think that eventually that people's actions will fall in line with that.
Yes, well, at least they're starting to say it. But, I mean, it's a 50-50, especially with people in my own peer group. But, when I talk to older generations, I still get the why or the da-da-da-da.
I didn't really feel a lot of this. I mean, we've talked about this before. Like, people do mention it to me. It had mentioned it to me before because Austin and I were together forever before we had kids. I didn't really feel it, but I know Austin definitely started to feel it, like, especially when we got a house.
Yes.
He would be like, I don't want them to think that we're weirdos. It was a big concern for him when we got the house and like he wanted to get a doormat. And he's like, I want to get a pineapple, because it means welcome. But then we found out about the pineapple thing. Have you heard about the pineapple thing?
No.
Pineapples are supposedly, I don't know if this is true. It's just maybe an urban legend. I don't know. That pineapples signify that they're swingers. That you're a swinger? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's actually true.
What does that say about the TV show Psych? You ever watch
I know.
that?
They love the pineapple.
Every episode. Hey, James Roday. Young James Roday.
No, I'll still take him. He got a little chubby and I like it.
I'm more about Dule. I can fix it. Wait, is that what he said? Sorry, I'm making a Holes reference. Can I make a Holes reference real quick?
Yes. I just love how much they eat in that show, so that makes me happy. And that guy can dance. Julie Hill can dance.
He can tap
He has
dance.
a few episodes in Psych that he's really good at.
Oh, yeah, the musical.
Gosh, that is such a funny show.
I Can Fix That. Oh, that gets me. Anyways, it was I Can Fix That.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay.
He fixes it, and then they kill him for loving a white woman.
Okay,
Norms.
downer.
Norms have changed.
Anyway, but Austin didn't want to put this thing out there because he's like, I don't want them to think that we're, swingers and weirdos in the neighborhood and stuff like that. He felt that pressure.
Because it is such a norm that you get married, you buy a house, you have kids, that if you don't, that's the same reason that there's always the story of like the old woman living on the block alone. She's the witch. She's a spinster.
A spinster, yeah.
Yeah, because it violates a societal norm. So that's one that I think is changing because there's many different ways to live a life these days. It's not so much the cookie cutter. And I'm hoping that one will change as we go forward. And that
it will.
A single person living in a big house or a couple or a throuple, whatever you're into, if you're living together and you decide not to procreate, people are going to be like, that's your business.
Yeah.
So whether you want to wear pants or stop something from clawing out of your pants area, norms are changing and there are taboos, and taboos do come and go.
And that's why we're here.
Thank you, Bronson, so much for reaching out to us. We, again, one more time, we're sorry we got you confused with somebody else. But we appreciate you listening and that it sparked conversations, and we hope you and your girlfriend enjoyed today's episode.
And if you guys liked what you heard today, why don't you give us a review on Apple Podcasts? Go on there, let us know what you think. Give us a 3, 4, 5-star, whatever you want. We prefer 5. But whatever you want, leave us a typed review and let us know what you think. We will absolutely read it on one of our episodes.
Definitely. You know, we had a lot of fun tonight. We had a lot of laughs. But let's be serious for a moment. Hit download.
Oh!
Please hit download. Leave us a review. Give us a rating. We're just two nobodies out here trying to cut it in a very cluttered world of podcasts. So any bit helps. Tell your friends and all that other good stuff. You can find us on social at Impolite Society, Instagram and Facebook, because like we said, we're corporate shills. That's all we got time to manage. I'm sorry. But if you send us a message on Instagram, if you find us on Reddit, we might answer your rude question. And I think that's all the time we got.
Drums! Drums!
There's gots to be drums. They're the drums of change coming in to wipe out this taboo. And this means we are done for Fan Friday.
Bye, guys. Have a great weekend. Have fun.